Hey, we are live. Hello, 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 hello. How is everyone today? It is Monday. It is 6:02 p.m. and we are back for another amazing episode of Create Your Future Self Live. I am Laquita Monley, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, Mr. Victor Nico the Don of Nico Don Projects. And we have another Power Pack show ready for you guys today. And we appreciate your support to all of our viewers that are watching us across Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, as well as on Apple TV, as well as on Roku TV. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. We appreciate you for joining us each and every Monday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Now, today we have a Power Pack guest. It is the Reverend Margo Williams. Reverend Williams. Yeah, she has so many accomplishments under her belt. She's dynamic and passionate relationship coach, mentor, minister, educator, and author. She is experienced and effective in delivering provocative and transformative teaching. Miss Margo, how are you today, ma'am?
I am awesome. Thank you. I was like, who are you talking
about? She does that all
today. Yes, I mean, you do. You have like some amazing accomplishments. You're a teacher, and right now you are working on your doctorate while being an educator at the same time. Working on your doctorate alone is a lot of work, but you seem to have mastered that art of multitasking and being able to, be balanced in that area.
Yes, I have, and I learned to multitask the moment that I got married. My husband, he gave me all of these things to do, and I didn't know that was part of the program. So
those memos don't go out.
Jesus.
So,
go ahead.
So tell us about what you do. I want to know more about Graceful Fire. Mm-hmm. I want to know more about the things that you're doing in ministry as in evangelism, missions, discipleship. Talk to us about who you are and what you're doing.
Well, actually, what I do, I am by heart, by calling, I am a discipler. And so what I found during my spiritual walk many years ago is that if I learned to really love the Lord and love God's people, that I could reach them wherever they are. And, I grew up in a very loving, small, rural country, South Carolina town. And what I learned is that there is a very heavy spirit of religion that rests in those type of cultures. Mm-hmm. And so it ran interference in my life, because the more that I grew in the Lord, I realized some of the things that I was taught. Now, it was intended to be well, but it really wasn't well for me, if that makes sense. So in my walk, I just have realized that the Lord intended for me to be a discipler, a connector, somebody to help to, as the word tells us, to equip the saints. Mm-hmm. But in order to equip them, we have to begin to deal with the issues of the heart and of life so that they can walk in the power that God has given them. So that's really who I am. But I find myself working it out in various ways. I'll go to the mission field, I'll go to the prisons. I pretty much like the places that people don't like to go to, that aren't very glamorous. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even, my strongest platform, it's called Graceful Fire. And I'm still asking the Lord sometimes, what all does he mean for me to do with it? Because my message is always relationship. Mm-hmm. And a very dear friend said to me one day, she said, the reason God gave you Graceful Fire is that you walk in the fire of God, but you handle it in grace. And I said, oh my God. Right. She said, so many people would be angry, but God has given you that tongue to say what you need to say to people, mm-hmm. so that it will build and encourage and not destroy them. Mm-hmm. And so all I can say is, to God be the glory, because I believe that is the grace of God. And I do know that his fire burns within me. So with the coaching area, I mainly deal with people who are dealing with inner conflict themselves, or if they're dealing with relational conflict. Many times people come to me and they're wanting to get married, and they can't seem to resolve some issues. And so they'll come and, they'll say, well, we don't want to go to a counselor. We want to go to you. We want you to coach us, and I'm like, okay. And so with that, it's been very rewarding for me, because I realize that it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. The truth of the matter, if you have the courage to look at yourself and recognize you need some help and step out and get it, And so that's really what I'm about. I'm about helping people to resolve conflict so that they can move on to the next part of their life.
Wow. So, and I think there might be an echo in somebody. It might be me or not. I think I tried to turn my phone down. I want to make sure folks out there are sharing this, liking this. Drop your comments, ask your questions. We got Reverend Margo on here, so you don't want to mess around and miss the opportunity to ask a question that you may have. But the first question I have for you is: so it sounds like people will come to you, or they feel comfortable coming to you to deal with relationship issues. Am I correct? So
yes.
And you said people would ask you, before they're married. I assume you're also helping people in marriage. Am I correct?
Yes.
And then what about those folks after marriage? Like if they had a situation, a divorce, or even if it was related to a loss of a spouse. Are you coaching any folks in that space as well?
I will coach people in that space, and I have. And the main reason why I do that, at first I did not want to. But the reason why I do that is because many times people have a difficult time looking at what has happened in their life and learning from it. And if we don't learn from where we've been, what are we going to do? We're going to repeat it. And then the other component to it is that when people go through divorces or just breakups with family members or best friends and those kinds of things, we don't always give it the validation that it needs. And what I mean by that is many times people will say, I'm good with that. I put, that's behind me. I don't even think about that anymore. And the first thing I say is lie. Because you wouldn't have to talk, if you love people, if you're connected for real, it's going to bother you, and say that it bothers you. There's no need to fake it. I've never bought into fake it till you make it.
Come on now.
Because we have to be real. We've got to be authentic. And so when you go through something that's hurt, and I've gone through some things that have really years ago, I thought, what, if I ever had to face that, I don't know how it would do. Well, guess what? When we say those things, the thing that we dreaded the most will come upon us. And so some of those things did. But what I learned from it is, if I'm honest with what I did right, what I did wrong, if I'm honest about how I feel in the process, we have something to work with. But if we continue to say, I don't think about that anymore, that's behind me, that's like putting someone in a closet and shutting the door.
Yeah.
And at the right time, they're going to break open and that door. So I just think that we have to assess the casualty. And so that's the main reason that I felt led to go ahead and deal with that as well. Yeah.
Awesome. I like what you said at the beginning of the conversation you have when people come to you and they don't want to go to a counselor or therapist, but they want to come to you as a coach. And that's great. But if we have some viewers out there that are watching that are saying, if I know I love them, then we don't need anybody else. You and I know that's a deception of the enemy.
Yeah, it is.
Talk to us about why seeking out that premarital assistance is a key component to building the solid foundation you need in a marriage, irregardless of how old you are when you get married.
That is so powerful in and of itself. Because the first thing we as preachers say when we're going to marry somebody is that we're not to enter into this lightly. And so many times people will fall in love with the aspect of getting married. They'll decide to get married very too early in a relationship. The first couple of months, you don't even need to be talking about that. But I've run into people that the entire relationship was planning to get married. So there are things that you don't see. And, I like to tell people that, if you're taking a trip somewhere and you have the liberty to take your time and look at the billboards, look at the MapQuest, and see what all is in the areas that you pass, you will find yourself really, really enjoying that trip. And there'll be times you'll take an exit because there's something you need to see or you want to see. But if you hit full throttle going 85 miles per hour down the interstate, there's so much that you're going to miss along the way on that trip. And that's how I, try to explain to people that it is not a wise thing to build your entire relationship on getting married. Enjoy yourself, enjoy just what I call just the fellowship of having somebody to, to do things with, to talk about things with, because it's in that process. Because to be honest with you, so many people have bought into this thing about, we're so compatible before they get married. And I'm like, you don't know what compatibility is, ma'am, until you have had some dysfunction and some challenge in your life. That's when you find out whether or not you're compatible. Right. And you have to pray and learn to be compatible.
Yeah.
But dating, you're not, that's not even in the picture yet, because it hasn't been developed.
So that's an interesting concept. Yeah. And so I want to kind of sit here for a minute, because I know it's some young couples out there, listening. Maybe they're in their 20s, 30s, maybe they're in their 40s or 50s, and they just haven't been in, long-term relationships before, and they're with somebody, they're trying to figure this whole thing out. And you mentioned, you really don't know them till you kind of hit that disharmony, that objection with each other. You kind of need to know, how do y'all deal with each other? Should couples kind of force that opportunity on, or look for opportunities to have a disagreement? And I'm not talking about arguments. I'm saying it could be a small thing, or it could be something related to their living situation. But should couples kind of embrace those adversities, just like we tell people in business, don't run from those challenges because they grow you. But what does that look like? How would a new couple, especially, who really wants to know if they're in the right relationship, aside from coaching? I know they need to come to you coaching, but just kind of give me an idea if you follow me on that.
Well, when people first meet one another, they try to put on their best front.
They're representative.
Yes. Yeah. And, especially you'll find people saying, well, that doesn't matter. That's okay. And my thing about it is that you have to be honest about what is okay and what's not okay, but be open to hear what someone else has to say and learn how, because if a person starts saying that everything that you say is fine, there is a problem. That person's not being honest.
Right.
They may be in denial with themselves, because I've seen people do that. They're denying what really makes them happy. They're denying what really is a priority in their life for the sake of saying that I have this person or I have this relationship. Yeah. So when we stop denying ourselves and really being honest about, what, I really don't like that. And if that's something that person says, well, you know what, I really do like this. You have to find a median. Can we work this out? Because, there are some things that it's just a non-negotiable, and we have to be big kids about it. And say that it's the non-negotiable, because the problem that happens is that people go ahead and they're so quick to say, I do. And then they decide what's a non-negotiable, and the other party didn't know that that's a non-negotiable. So I think that when situations happen, I don't think it's good to ignore it and act like it's not an issue. I think that it needs to be talked out. But I also think that many people need to be cautioned when they go too far, because there are some people that make everything an issue. So we have to find a balance, and timing is everything. It really is everything. If you spend enough time with people, you're going to run into something, in relationships that it's going to be a tester as to how we're going to move forward from here. Yeah.
You were given, like, I can't even count how many great nuggets that you've given for the married and the unmarried. Like, people, you're watching this. I hope you got a pencil and something to write on, something to write with. If not, don't worry about it. You can just hit the replay button when this is over, and you know to bring your something to write with and to write on, because Reverend Williams is giving some amazing value to help build healthy relationships. And if you're already in that marriage, how to foster a healthier marriage. I mean, you hit on something just a few minutes ago about people being in denial about what makes them happy for the sake of just saying, I have somebody. Oh my God, we got to invite you back for another show just for that. I mean, you know, I follow on social media. I've got a couple of, on my Instagram, there's a couple of relationship coaches that I follow, and they get these questions. And even on the radio, man, I've seen people send in these questions, men and women. And I'm thinking to myself, why is that even a question?
Yeah.
Like, if that person is doing that to you and you don't like it, or you need somebody to tell you if that's good or bad.
Yeah.
What kind of inner work do you need? That's probably has nothing to do with what this person is doing. Like, you know, how frequently do you find yourself talking to that particular individual that just has no sense of self yet?
I find myself speaking to people with that issue almost daily.
Wow.
And the reason I say that is we cannot give people self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
We can encourage a person, we can teach them principles, we can give them God's word, but until they decide to open themselves up to see who they really are and what they're deserving of, then it can feel like a losing battle, because that esteem comes from the inside. And it goes back to you really, that sense of identity, knowing who you are. And the one thing that I have tired of with the world's way is that they have labeled identity in ways that God has not. We have to begin to go back to the author, go back to the creator to see who we really are, because when we do that, the things that the world has labeled, they won't be so large when we really know who we are in God, you know. And the other issue that takes place with people that are in these places of denial, they have pain and they've learned how to cope with pain without really dealing with what that pain, what that issue has done to them. You know, we all learn how to put our super cape on when we've gone through something so we can make an appearance. And so what ends up happening, what's behind that cape, what we're covering up, it is deteriorating, it's getting hard, it's getting coarse, you know. Those are things that happen to us when we don't truly know who we are, when we receive things that we should not, which is really one of the I would say caveats that encouraged me to write even the book that I've written, because it's dealing with offense. And I did not know just how great offenses were in people's lives until I had to take a step back and look at issues that happened in my own life. You know, and what it may have appeared to be that that's just how people are, God began to show me that, you know, there's that seed of offense is so powerful. It can be so small, but it can grow into something that actually begins to distort and destroy a person's life if it's not, you know, not adequately dealt with. Yes.
Yeah. So we have a comment here from one of our Facebook users. This person says, some people may not see themselves as a casualty, and as a result, they decide losing the relationship does not hurt or bother them. Like, wow. So if I'm understanding what they're saying is they're so done with this that yeah, I'd rather leave than continue to deal with what's hurting me in this relationship.
And that
And
they don't
that's the
feel like
truth.
they're a victim. It sounds like she's saying also they don't want to be
Yeah.
viewed or felt like they are a victim because this
Mhm.
person left them or whatever the situation was.
Right.
But what I was saying has nothing to do with being a victim.
Mhm.
It has everything to do with the effect that something has had on a person.
Mm.
You know, we're not victims because something has affected us, that
Mhm.
because we have experienced something great. And
Mhm.
by all means, I believe that when something is not good for you, then you cut it off. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it didn't leave some sense of, what should I say? You don't have any ashes from it,
Mm.
because we do.
Yeah.
We are, you know, we have a soul,
Mhm.
and we can never forget what the soul is. You know, our emotions are connected in the soul. Our will, our thought, all of that, how we feel is connected in our soul.
Mhm.
So it doesn't have to be in a negative sense, but it can become negative if we don't recognize, what did I walk away from that experience? What did I take with me? You understand?
Right.
Because a lot of times, if we don't investigate that, we go into another relationship and someone else is paying the price because we've made some decisions
Mhm.
that we haven't paid attention to as to why we have made this decision.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. So I want to go kind of a slightly different direction here. So many of the viewers or people that follow Laquita and myself, they're entrepreneurs, real estate investors, self-employed people. Some may be new, as a result of maybe what all the last year's happenings, or maybe they've just been ready. They've put 20,
Yeah.
30 years into business for somebody else, and it's finally their time. But maybe their other partner is not feeling that entrepreneurial journey. They come from a background that's been, regimented. You do your 40 years, you get your retire. What is this business of starting your own business? Like what should a couple do where one is like, hey, I did that, and now it's time for me to blossom and grow and build our legacy for this family. And maybe the other person don't quite see the vision as clearly as they do. What should couples do in that situation?
Well, it's funny that you should bring this up, because my husband and I have had a business for 34 years now. We're almost married 33 years next month.
Wow.
And he has been an entrepreneur the entire time. And for me, of course, I came from the school of, you get a good job and you do this, that, and the other. But I learned that if you love somebody and you really love them and you are committed to one another, you have to begin to see what it is that person has a desire to and for. And so even though my dad had an entrepreneurial way, and I saw that as well growing up, I also have that. But I was a little afraid of it at the beginning of our marriage, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the beginning of our marriage, I was looking for stability in our marriage. And so when you decide to become an entrepreneur, sometimes there's a lot of instability that you have to go through.
For sure.
So my thing about it is, in a relationship, in a marriage, and one wants to become that entrepreneur, if you're committed in one area, you be committed in all. And it may not mean that you do all that is necessary for that particular business that they're growing, but you should never try to be a hindrance or stand in the way. Because many times the greatest power that you have is that power of really encouraging and standing with and standing for, and being there to be that spouse who is dependable, that they can come home to and want to let you know if it's been an awful day or if it's been a wonderful day.
Yeah.
So I think that we have to look outside ourselves, which is what intimacy is all about, seeing inside the person. I love you enough, and I know you well enough to know that this is something that is important to you. So if it's important to you, guess what? It's important to me as well.
I love that.
Yes.
Good. Wow.
Yeah, that was a great question, Vic, because I mean, it happens. It really does. Even for myself, some of our friends, a lot of our friends are entrepreneurs. Even with both people in the relationship being an entrepreneur, that's an added thing that can bring conflict because you're still two individuals. You may have one goal, but you're two individuals. So you'll see things from different perspective. And so, yeah, you know, being in a relationship, being married while building a business can get complicated.
It can.
Oh,
yes.
yeah. It can. I mean, it's just real talk because you know the part that doesn't always get, I guess, addressed is a lot of times that entrepreneur or even the person who may still be working in their corporate setting, their W-2 setting, is still dealing with the world, right?
Yeah.
And all of the challenges and the attitudes and why did this person do that and this and that. And you still have to allow space for each other when you're home together. And, you know, where I was, as you were explaining, which I thought was an excellent, you know, if you down for me, you down for me regardless.
Yeah.
Like if you're committed, you are committed.
Yeah.
However, also in the entrepreneurial space or even in the business world, if somebody's W-2, sometimes that entrepreneur pushing too far. You know, like this business ain't gonna work, bro. The numbers show it, everything's so in that situation, how should the opposite spouse, partner respond? How do they let them know, I have been in your corner, but I'm telling you, this right here needs to stop.
And you know, that's real. That's real because each person carries a weight. And there are many marriages that fall to pieces because one doesn't understand how far to go. And I think that this is a critical time. And if that spouse does not hear what you have to say, then you need some intervention. You need someone to sit down and help to reason with you about whatever, because there's no need of destroying everything that perhaps some changes or, you know, because sometimes you have to take a setback in order to move forward. So, but what I see sometimes in that situation, one party is so unreasonable and they have tunnel vision and not recognizing what it's doing to the relationship, to the family, to everything. And they go too far down that road. There are many people who get silent because they're frustrated. And I think at that point where they get silent, that's the time that they really need to say, listen, we need some help. Since, you know, maybe you can't hear me in this way, but let's have somebody that's unbiased, that, you know, that's qualified, that we can talk to. And not the person who is a loser anyway, or negative anyway. Because it's funny how people will go to people that know nothing about anything and take their advice and then put credits to it. And then build their life or destroy their life. And then you're sitting here saying, what made you go to this person who doesn't know anything?
Come on now, refs. You gonna say that one more time.
We have to give people, you know, I heard a friend of mine always says common sense isn't so common anymore.
It's not.
You know, it's crazy, but it is what it is.
You know, but you really did say something right there that I think a lot, I know a lot of people need to hear. You know, the recent snafu of a relationship guru on the internet, and their bad decisions to go public, right? At the time they went public, the thing that amazed me the most, I wasn't amazed by what happened. I wasn't even amazed about the reaction of that significant other. What amazed me was the amount of devastated people. Like, what system did you use to qualify this person to dictate your actions in your relationship.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and
Right.
but based off of, I mean, that was my thought. That's been my thought in that situation, right?
Yeah.
So I got other thoughts on it, but you said something that just brought that back to mind. It's like when we are allowing people in our personal space enough to talk about my marriage with you, what am I using to qualify that person as the person that I'm going to seek wise counsel for? And I mean, I know a lot of folks out here in internet land might not agree with me, but it's my belief system and I believe it, and it's worked for me for almost 30 years. If you single, you can't talk to me about my marriage.
That's right.
You know, if your spouse passed away, that's another matter. If you're a widower or a widow, that's different. Even if you were the offended person in your marriage when you got divorced, my heart goes out to you, sis or bro. But right now, what I need, the number one qualifier for us is you're married, and what is the longevity of your marriage? And are you happy? And people don't have qualifiers. Just because you my friend is not a qualifier.
Right. And just because you've experienced something either is not a qualifier. You know, I've seen people that have gone through many things, and they're very willing to give their philosophies to people. But until we're really ready to deal with both sides of the coin, with both, you know, what happened on both sides, because in marriages, we can easily point our finger and say, I didn't do this, that, the other, based on what someone else may have done to cause an offense in a marriage. But if we are really honest, none of us are perfect, you know, and I think that very few people are willing to investigate their own stuff, you know, so that they can really be honest when a person comes to them about an issue. Because if a person can't tell me where they were foul, I really can't listen but so much, because we all have a time that we could have been quiet. We all have times where perhaps we should have spoken. We all have times that perhaps I didn't have to do that when I did that, or I didn't have to do that that way. And those are the things that we glaze over, and not knowing how the big offender may have received those things. Because what I found is that sometimes it's the things that we diminish its weight. It carries a greater weight with the other person. You know.
Wow, this is good stuff here, Reverend Margo. Share with the folks again how they can follow you and connect with you. Somebody's going to be reaching out. We've hit some pain points here today. Somebody's going to reach out for some coaching.
Well, you can locate me on Facebook at Margo Praise God Now, or my website, margowwilliams.com, or LinkedIn at Margo Williams, MDiv, CPC. So, but you know, it is just such an amazing journey, because we have God's word. And it just always amazes me how we can all read the same word and know by the letter what it means, but have problems with working it out in the spirit. You know what I'm saying? Because in the spirit, you got to have grace. And so when we don't apply grace to issues, we really end up injuring other people and injuring ourselves, and it sends the wrong message. It's an inaccurate message, because we've got to be able to have that grace and truth when we're dealing with people.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this, and this is one of my favorite questions to ask when we have coaches on is, you know, what would a session look like with you if this couple decides to hire and engage with you? You know, what would an initial session kind of look like? I assume you're available virtual as well as in person, and I'm specifically kind of thinking about the partner in the couple that's not open to just divulging all they pain to you and their, the things that may be kind of the stuff you need to know about. So just kind of give us an idea what people could expect in working with you through a coaching situation.
Well, the first thing I share with people is that you have the floor. Mm-hmm. And you tell me what it is that you want. Mm-hmm. If you don't want anything, then we have nothing to discuss. Mm-hmm. So if you want to get over a particular hurdle, you've got to be real about what the hurdle is. Mm-hmm. And I let them know when I ask you questions, I don't want to know your business, but this is about your business. Mm-hmm. So if you want to deal with the situation, let's be honest. And, I guess you probably figured out by now, I'm a very cut and dry person, but because I don't believe that we need to play with our lives. Mm-hmm. If you come to me and you say that we just can't seem to get beyond this, and that's what your goal is to get beyond this, mm-hmm. every question that I ask is going to have something to do with that's connected to that issue. Mm-hmm. Because many times people think that things are not connected, and it really is. So much is connected. Mm-hmm. It's just that we may not deal with it in a connected way, but everything is. It is in some way connected. It affects the other. So when people sit down with me, I just ask them, what is it that you want? How much of a commitment are you willing to give? Do I have to ask you the same questions in 4 different ways for you to tell the truth? And many people laugh about that, and that's what I say. So then I'll say, well, you're laughing, but this really happens. Mm. And I just want to know that we don't have to deal with that before we get over here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that breaks the wall down.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's real good. That's real good. I have to admit that I would laugh at that question every time you said it. You say it. But
because a coach is not trying to go back and do counseling, because mm-hmm. the counselor is going to deal with every issue that happened in their life. Mm-hmm. A coach is supposed to deal with you with what is it that you want to accomplish?
Right.
So whatever that is that you want to accomplish, that's what we're going to deal with. Mm-hmm. And, and I tell people many times I would suggest that you get a clinician to deal with this. Mm-hmm. I can deal with you as a minister in this and we get delivered, mm-hmm. but the mind and the spirit, the soul all work together. Yes. And sometimes people need to have a clinician to mm-hmm. deal with that matter that is a clinical matter.
This is true.
Yeah. I mean, it's really great to hear you say that because mental health matters.
It does.
Mental health matters. My spiritual health is first and foremost. Yes, it is. My physical health is a part of my mental health. And yes. Knowing as ministers of the gospel, we need to know right. where we stop and where we start and where right. we pass it on to that person who's trained in that area right. to take an individual the rest of the way. I really like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we're going to shift gears one more time because I want to thank our viewing audience, those that have been watching us in our Facebook groups and pages and on YouTube, and of course, as well as on Apple and on Roku. Thank you guys so much. We do love your support each and every week. But as Vic was talking about earlier about the business side of things. So if we have people here that are desiring to be coaches, that are designed to, even in your bio, you've helped to establish and build ministries. Give me 3 good foundational things that these people need to make sure that they're doing to get a good start.
Well, for me, the first thing that I did when it came to being a coach, because I literally pushed back on coaching, I really did, because I didn't understand it initially. And what I saw was that I saw people really prostituting themselves for a platform so much. And so I just said, I don't want to have a part of this.
So you have to come on.
And I'm just being real, because just because you have a gift of gabbing, that does not make you a coach.
That's right.
And I think that, and just because you've read people's books, you know, that doesn't make you a coach. You've really got to me, you've got to have a heart for people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the first thing is that people need to do is just really ask themselves, why do I want to do this?
Mm-hmm.
For real, not just because of the money component, because the product is people.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing is really get certified. You know, and the reason why I say that is no matter what we decide that we're going to do, if we're going to be professionals at it, there must be some sort of standard. There must be a protocol that we are willing to follow. And so I believe we need to be certified.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third thing I believe that coaches need to do, they need to decide, where am I really, really at my best and my strongest?
Mm-hmm.
I could talk to people about many, many things, but I know that my best is relationships. I know that my best is to help to build people and strengthen the inner person. So I'm not going to go out here and try to coach you in another area when I know that this is the area that I feel a sense of being solid and sound in.
Mm-hmm.
That's solid advice.
Yes,
Especially, well, for sure, all of them. Number one, people is your product. So if you're not a people person, take coaching off of your list of potential jobs or companies that you want to start. But I love that you talk about the passion for that particular thing that you really enjoy coaching on, because you got to keep learning that. It's not just like, okay, I've reached this pinnacle of education in this topic. Assumably that topic is going to continue to evolve and grow, and technology get added, and all kind of different strategies and models of that thing come about. So if you don't like that and you're not willing to dive in on a daily basis, looking at podcasts, hearing different views on it, checking the competitions, how they're doing the coaching on it, this is probably not your thing. You know, when we talk about entrepreneurs all the time, like, some people just aren't entrepreneurs. You just are not an entrepreneur. I know it's sexy and cool to say it right now, but if you're not in it to win it and roll up your sleeves and you don't got your bread ready where you could just live off of your savings and stuff for 2 years, if your business doesn't be successful, you might need to just pace this thing out, or just decide, you know what, I'm gonna just keep clocking in. And this, I don't have no responsibilities. I'm just gonna clock in and do it that way. So I love that you said that, Reverend, and just I see it in you. You definitely know your stuff. You definitely, I can see, I just met you in these last 45 minutes, and I can feel your passion and energy for helping people through these relationship things. And you're not going to play around. You're going to let them know straight up. Look, you came to me for some help, so I got to just tell you what I see. I love that. Folks, y'all need to reach out to her.
Absolutely. So now let me ask you, on the flip side of that coin, the things that they need to do. Give me 3 things that they definitely need to stay away from that's going to hinder their success. You
mean their life success or their success business?
Life success. Because if the life ain't successful, the rest of it really don't matter. In my opinion.
Okay. Well, the first thing I believe that people need to stay away from people who are negative. Stay away from people who are jealous and controlling. And that is a biggie. Yeah. Many times people don't pay attention to how they have been manipulated and talked out of the very things that God has for them. Yeah. The second thing is stay away from wasting time and energy. And what I mean by that is, I'm all for vacations. I'm all for taking a break. But you know what? If you know that you're supposed to be doing something, be about it. Do it. You know, talk is cheap. Get with it. And the third thing that I think that people should stay away from, what would be the third thing? I don't know. Maybe the third thing probably has to do with staying away from these relationships that we believe are going to make us or break us.
That's powerful.
There are people many times who believe that because I'm connected to this person or this circle, then I'm going to make it. Well, what about who you are?
Come on, man.
You know, and so that to me, more and more, I see that as a damper sometimes, not always, but sometimes it becomes a damper because they lose themselves in someone else's life.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done that before, not in that way, but I have helped to establish things for other people and looked around saying, now I'm so much further away from what it is that I'm supposed to be doing.
Reverend Will, you done set some people free today. Let me just say, tell you have set some people free today because that information is transferable to life and business. But that third thing, staying away from what type of relationships?
I don't even remember what I said.
That's all right. I'm gonna paraphrase it.
Feeling like certain people, you got to be associated with certain people to be successful, and that's not the case.
Yeah, because if you don't value yourself and understand your power, your authority, what you're capable of, you'll connect yourself with people who you think have that and can get you where you need to be. And you're so busy working and building for them and their vision and what they're trying to accomplish, and you reap no benefit from it.
Yeah, and you lose yourself. You lose you.
Yeah, absolutely. You have set some folks free today. I'm telling you. Y'all going out there and shout. And get us up in the comments. You know you like what she said.
Already. Yep.
You know they like what she said. And the ones that's mad about it is probably because you the guilty party. I'm going to put that out there. You the guilty party.
I told y'all we had some pain points today, man. Some folks hurt.
But you know, that's how we grow too. Yeah, that's how we grow. When people get a little angry, that's what my book is all about. I'm gonna give a shout out to my book. It's called Pain. And the reason why is that when people get offended, it's because something is there. And so when you really look at what offense is, it has to do with something that's lying there that could cause you to trip. So when people get offended, most of the time I have learned now it's okay that they're offended. Because if they are in Christ and they're asking God, why does this bother me? God will show them what's laying there that they need to deal with.
Come on now.
You know, so when people, they're quick to rise up, that's okay because that's a growth moment.
I put the Amazon link to your book, Petty Pain, in the comment. I hope it goes through right. It seems like it's having a hard time. So that's all right, because I'll go back and put it in after the show.
Okay.
Your book,
I clicked on it on the phone. It take you right there. Petty Pain, Understanding the Assignment of Offense. Margo Wright Williams.
Yeah.
Go on, get it, y'all.
For sure.
Yeah. Nice.
Great read. A must read that you have on your shelf. I mean, you've been dropping value since the beginning of the show, definitely. Whether it's from relationship building, being able to identify things within yourself and within others that aren't healthy for you or that are healthy attributes. And this last nugget that you dropped, this is my favorite one of the day. But I'm telling you, it's my favorite one of the day.
Right.
It is because for the last couple of weeks, my social media feed and my blog has been focused on unlocking your potential. And that's a roadblock that a lot of people have to unlocking their potential because they're giving all of their energy to someone else's vision, someone else's work, or someone else's interpretation of them. You can't unlock your own potential. You can't unlock your own potential when everything in you is focused on someone else. You have to be balanced. If I'm going to help my sister out, my brother out, I'm going to help my friend out. You're not saying don't help them.
Right.
What I hear you saying is help them, but don't neglect helping yourself.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is awesome. So we always like to ask our guests this one particular question. So for you, Reverend Margo Williams, what does your future self look like? What is the plan? 3 to 5 years.
Well, in 3 years, I hope to be, I will be in 3 years. I want to take my coaching business into the church arena to coach pastors, to do healthy inspections across the ministry board, whether it's their ministry staff, congregation, everything.
Uh-oh.
Because we must be peacemakers, but we must be peacemakers according to God's plan and not our opinions and attitudes and all of that.
Uh-oh.
My plan is to establish a group of strong business owners who will connect with me to be a part of this board, this panel of people. And we are going to work with churches to make them healthy again. And we're also going to go, I've taken my missions ministry and we're going to go into areas that I have not gone before. I've only dealt with people from India and from Africa, but my plan is to take our people to Haiti and take our people to a nation that are people who are not of color.
Wow.
And the reason why is because the mission work that I've done, what I see is that with the nations in Africa that I have worked with, they want to see us.
Mm-hmm.
And but we have this attitude about ourselves when we see white people going to our people, and sometimes we don't always understand, or they don't understand. Mm-hmm. And what I found is going to African nations, many times they look at the gospel in a sense of a white gospel. They don't understand who we are as African Americans.
Oh, wow.
And then the other component, not enough of our people are going to the people who are the white-skinned people. Mm-hmm. Because they need to know. We all need to come into contact with who our brothers and sisters really are. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I want to lead a team, maybe to Russia or somewhere, or Czechoslovakia, somewhere where the predominance is not people of color. Mm-hmm. Because that's just as important, because they have attitudes and beliefs about us because they don't know us.
Right.
And so we must make sure that we enter those places so that they can see, hear, and know mm-hmm. who we are as a people.
Wow.
So those are just two of the things.
A couple little small things.
Let me tell you how much I love every aspect of who your future self is. Yes, I love especially that
Absolutely. First. Yeah, that first one, you about to be looking like the food inspector coming in the restaurant. Yes, on that one, boy, they will be so scared of you.
That's all I'm saying. I don't want to be the food when it happens, just let me be your note taker. Like, I'm going to just sit there and take the notes for you. I'm going to take the notes.
But you know what? But you think about it. If pastors really have a desire for their church to grow, then don't you really want it to be healthy so that people will really look at the church for what purpose God has established the church?
Absolutely.
But there's also a reason that you're doing this, because you may have seen that there's some churches built on principles, and or maybe they were built on the right principles, but the staff you just mentioned or the congregation that they're allowing in these roles haven't been vetted properly. So those ones gonna feel it, and they're gonna see you coming. And yep. So I love that.
I love it. Awesome. I love every aspect of it. You know.
Yeah, I love that.
And I've had the opportunity to go to some Eastern European nations and preaching the gospel, and it's a beautiful experience. You know. And I 100% agree with you. We as African Americans do need to put our feet to the plow more as it relates to a foreign mission field outside of our country, you know, and And the thing to me that I learned first and foremost is leave your cultural perceptions behind.
Yes.
Because where you're going doesn't necessarily relate to
Right.
your culture, but the gospel of Jesus Christ it's applicable everywhere. So learning how to respect someone else's culture before you go in, learning about it, and when you get there, different is not wrong. It's different.
That's it, because God didn't create us to make them different.
Different is not wrong. It's different.
Exactly. We're supposed to embrace who God has created each of us to be in our individuality and cultures. Yeah,
absolutely. We just need to preach the gospel. The Holy Spirit will take care of the rest.
That's right. I agree.
Awesome. Well, Miss Margo, before we are at the top of our hour, before we go, are there any last things that you want to share with our audience today?
First of all, thank you for allowing me to share tonight. And if I want to share anything with the audience, it is to be true. And I'm not talking about this language when people say this is my truth and all of that. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is be so in tune with your Creator that you begin to see and understand yourself in the light of His perspective. Because once we have His perspective on who we are, we can then begin to walk the way that we need to walk and have that confidence that we're supposed to have, and knowing that greater is He that's in us than the one that's in the world.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you again. You have been an amazing guest. You've left us with so much value, so many things to think on, so many things to pray about. Guys across Facebook, YouTube, Apple, and Roku, thank you again for tuning in. Please join us back again next week, next Monday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. We will be back with another great episode of Create Your Future Self Live. And as always, another amazing guest that will add extra value to your life and to your business. Until next time, I'm Laquita Munley. You guys take care. God bless.
God bless.